Hello and welcome everyone to this all-decisive video where we will discuss the 5 conditions to unlock AI Utopia. And different from many other people who talk about AI Utopia, I'm not doing it out of some random vision for something beautiful we could achieve like cure all disease or something, but I'm doing it because building Utopia in the next 3 years is actually a necessity, a necessary condition for human survival. And I discussed that in previous videos. But here's a quick recap, and I developed a quick model to show you exactly what that means on trajectories. Now, here's the problem that we are facing right now. And some people accuse me of being a doomer, an AI doomer, because I'm saying if you continue on the current trajectory, the risk of human extinction is 100%. The probability that no one makes it out alive if we continue like that is 100%. So here's how this exactly looks a little bit more quantified. What you see here is my 2 trajectories of doom and utopia, because that's what we are dealing with right now. Is humanity and all of us going into doom and no one gets out of here alive, which is the blue line, or are we on a utopia trajectory and building a world that is so beautiful, abundant, and perfect that we can't even imagine it right now? That is the red trajectory. Now, let me explain what that is. On the left side of the scale, you see the multiple of AI intelligence over human intelligence. So a multiple of 25, or specifically 24, that's the yellow one, means that one AI agent is 24 times smarter than a smart human. In technical terms, we are talking about an IQ of roughly 2,400 if you take an IQ of 100. Now, it's debatable if that's multiple times smarter or not, but just as a basic threshold, very crude assumption of mine, roughly 25x of a human, and you can have billions of these agents, of course. They should not be interconnected and they shouldn't do certain things, but they are 25 times smarter than humans. Why 25 times? Why not 50 times or why not 10 times? It's a very crude assumption. It doesn't really matter when you look at the trajectories if it's 10 times or 20 times. It matters if it's 1,000 times, but I don't think you need 1,000 times. So here's why I think 25 is a safe bet, that this is the level of machine intelligence that would unlock utopia. I'm so convinced because when I talk to smart humans, let's say just very crude measurements of IQ, if I talk to humans with 130 to 150 IQ, most problems are very solvable already. We have some scientific challenges, but you could definitely eradicate poverty, eradicate political dissent and infighting. You could eliminate most diseases already with what we have if you just would be a little smart in the human decision making with people who are just smart. So if you take this times whatever, times 10, 15 for these very smart people, we are on the safe side of what we need for utopia. Now, why is that so important? Why is that utopia threshold so important? Because if we define a threshold, we know what we need for utopia, and we know that we don't need much more, because more is not very beneficial. Once you solve all the major problems, and you can do that every 10 years, because there will be new problems, you should be golden. You don't need more, because wanting more comes at a big price. And that price is universal extinction of humans. So the blue line is what happens if we let this run. So as you can see here, I am assuming, and I have good evidence for that we are already in 2027 at ASI, because that's already significantly smarter than humans in 2027, very significant. In 2028, you can see that we are roughly already at 10 times the intelligence of a human. That is definitely super intelligence. And in 2029, you see the divergence between these two paths. Why is this divergence happening? Because there are 3 fateful decisions we have to make. Hopefully, we don't make the wrong decisions here. If we allow recursive self-improvement of the ASI, if we allow that thing to code itself and create a runaway effect, then you are entering the blue trajectory, right? You're not going on doubling this thing anymore, but you are going into a logarithmic kind of development. If you give it recursive economic control, which means not just coding itself, but you give it special economic zones, you give the ASI full control over manufacturing capabilities of chips and design capabilities of chips and then of weapons and so on, then you are on a full-on exponential trajectory. But there's something much more dangerous than any of these things, and that is full access of ASI to unaligned humans. Because even at that point here, imagine you have a 10 times smarter thing, smarter than any human, that has unaligned access to humans. humans that actually make the decision if they have self-improvement, recursive self-improvement control, or economic control. Then the ASI can bribe and convince the humans in charge to let it run. And that's how we all end. By the way, I have another chart that would show where this trajectory ends, but this goes up vastly, not just exponentially, but logarithmically. So latest in 2020, 2032, we would be completely toast. And that is the crucial point. And these years, I might be off by a year or two. Maybe a year earlier it could happen, or 2 to 3 years later under certain circumstances, but not more. That is my margin of error. So it doesn't really matter if I'm a year off or not, as long as I'm roughly in the right ballpark. That is the paradigm I want you guys to understand. We are dealing with this specific paradigm. In a nutshell, that paradigm is that we are years, only a couple of years away, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, but not more, to get into a state and capability of building utopia, of solving all human problems under certain circumstances. But capability-wise, we could engineer any reality we want. But within a year or two, we could be on our path to extinction. That is logically connected. Even if I'm a year off, I'm not off with the assumption that at any point when we unlock utopia, if we don't do very specific things to constrain that thing that unlocks utopia, that thing is going to kill us within 10 years after. And I mean, actually kill us. It will get on a trajectory that is irreversible, leading to our extinction within months after. The difference is killing means we are dead. Irreversible extinction means we are living and this thing does stuff, but we can't stop it anymore because we allowed it to encroach on the human decision-making systems. So it all boils down now to understand this all-decisive paradigm. It's actually very deep. I'm not going to go into how deep it is, but at the millisecond or at the month where we invent our ability to unlock utopia, we are only months away from the end of humanity. And in a way, it's a bittersweet situation, because if we understand that and get very prepared, and I will tell you in a second how we get prepared. We get very prepared. We are really close to utopia, which is a big deal when you think about it. No poverty, universal prosperity, no death, no disease. It's all solved. All your problems are gone. That is utopia. We just have to make sure we are walking this very thin line between unlocking this thing and not stepping into the blue. So how do we do that? I covered this in the previous video. Well, we have to absolutely prevent runaway ASI because it creates a P-doom, probability of doom of 100%. And the decision point will be approaching very quickly. And that decision point, 2028, 27, 29, around there, we need all decision makers to make sure we are putting constraints on this thing and do not create self-improving recursive coding ASI and giving them control over physical manufacturing. Now, in the current trajectory, there's a 100% chance if we don't do something very smart that these people will give it control, because it means instantaneous, unlimited wealth for the people who do that. It also means the demise, but people don't care about the demise in 10 years if they can get trillionaires in the years before, unfortunately. So we need to do something to prevent that. And I elaborated on that before. In order to align humans that then align the ASI, we need to create what I call the minimum viable utopia. We need to create something that creates such an attraction of the people that see, oh, there is a better path for everyone, that there's enough pressure and enough persuasion for the people in charge that they say, you know what, it's so beautiful, why don't we just do that instead of killing us all just for another trillion? So it is up to us to build that, but we are under pressure to make this happen and to build that utopia, to build a prototype of that utopia, because we already have the tools to build all necessary preconditions to get there. This is all about the exercise, how we make this happen. And this video is about the 5 conditions to unlock utopia. So let's start with condition number 1. And you might find this silly, like who doesn't want to get rich? But let me elaborate why this is so important. And these conditions come in a specific order. I have seen a lot of things in my life, and I've seen that, you can talk all day long. You can tell people about all the risks that are awaiting humanity. People don't really care when it comes down to it, because people say, that's all very interesting, Joe. Very sad that we're all going to die. But you know what? I have bills to pay. I need to make money. Bye-bye. I need to work for my boss. I have an opportunity here. Building Utopia is not a theoretic activity. It's a reality engineering activity where we need to deliver instantaneously to the people who help us and are on board. And the first condition before anything else is we need to make sure that we build a system that immediately makes everyone rich. And you know how that works, because if you follow my channel, that's what we're actually working on all day long and helping all you guys to get rich and everyone who's involved. If citizens don't get rich, nothing works. And we get rich by being right. So what I, try to convey here, and all of you guys like it about my Tesla videos, by starting to use our brains and engineering reality. One important step to engineer reality, which includes Utopia, is to be right about reality. And being right means you need to predict the future by understanding all the pieces around you and making the right predictions. And one of the best ways to train yourself in making the right predictions are stocks, because all the bullshit goes out of the window. If I tell you Tesla is going to go to 11,000 by 2030 and all the numbers before, I can't bullshit my way out of it. I need to be right. Otherwise you say, Joe, you were wrong. You lost all the money. That's not a good option. So stocks are beautiful. Being right makes us rich. Making the right predictions, quantifying them and operationalizing them into trades. But it's not just about being rich, becoming rich. It is the first decisive exercise to prove that we are the ones who can predict and understand reality correctly. Now, of course, this is just the first step. Predicting stocks is great and makes us a lot of initial money. But we need to take it to the next level. First of all, it makes us even more money. And second of all, it helps us build the entire thing that's coming, the next conditions 2 to 5. We can go beyond stocks, right? We can go into building things, building startups, building health, longevity, dating, family, all the key things we need to deliver. I get there in a second. Media, all the things that are actually needed as central pillars of Utopia. Nothing else. We don't want to build t-shirt companies. We also don't want to build AI chip companies. We want to build the central pillars of Utopia. And while we are building them, each of them is a giant trillions of dollars worth business model and TAM. So by first making money with stock predictions and being right about it, training our brains to make the right simulation of the world, very important, then we can take it to the next level in building the stuff that creates this new world and doing so in a highly profitable way. Because don't forget, without money, nothing works. So number 2, once we make sure everyone gets rich, the condition number 2, very important, we need to communicate and convince. Because if we don't communicate and convince, we can't align everyone. We need to align the decision makers, but ideally many more people than just the top decision makers in AI to this plan. Because ultimately the whole world needs to be aligned. And alignment works through persuasion and voluntary alignment. We are not talking about forcing people, because if you force people, you are creating bad karma, to do some Buddha talk. I don't believe in Buddha talk, but it's easy to understand. Bad karma is bad because you create aggression, oppression, and the problem with that stuff is it backfires because it creates anger, and anger is very bad for alignment because people will get angry at you and do something. So we need to convince them in a positive way that we are on the right track and we have the right plan. And theory is one thing, utopia is another thing. If people see utopia where everyone is rich, healthy, and lives forever, that is just all you need to convince people. But you need to build the media and the culture around it and make it transparent what we are doing here. Have people participate in this trajectory. And guess what? Yes, that is also a business opportunity, because we have to build the world's greatest media empire, pioneer lands, where we communicate that great trajectory into the future. That is, again, a money-making opportunity, but at the same time, a strategic civilizational pillar of our plan. If we don't communicate, we can't coordinate, we can't synergize, and we cannot align. Communication and media is the centerpiece of alignment. Everything we do should be as live as possible and as participatory as possible, of course, with some smart governance systems so we are not wasting our time and becoming inefficient. X and YouTube are beautiful. We need to make sure that everything we do in that new media design has what I call a positive attention ROI, right? So if you pay attention to my videos or all the other stuff we are producing in the future, to the Pioneer Academy education, when you pay attention, you need to have more energy and more momentum coming out of that video than you had coming in. That is the biggest ROI for the viewer that we can deliver. We need to make sure people are inspired and more productive after watching. That is good entertainment. And of course, we have to make sure while they're watching, they have fun. So that is a long story, but I think we are on a great trajectory here, telling the right stories, making things more compelling and making sure it becomes more and more entertaining by increasing production value while staying on track on mission. The media, as I said, is a beautiful new pillar of the new economy. And if you follow me because of Tesla and investing, I tell you the next big thing besides Tesla is these private investments. We need to figure that out. I don't have anything ready, but we need to figure it out because these private investments deliver the highest ROI, especially if we as a community can actually build that stuff and participate and spread the word. It's like a cheat code. If you build a media company, but you already have 30,000 people pushing it, of course it's going to be successful if you're not very dumb. And AGI is going to help us. It already helps us massively improving production quality and everything. So Utopia must achieve maximum persuasion. Maximum persuasion comes from media, from pioneer media, and we are going to build that. Now, number 3, now it gets a little complex. Once we are rich, or while we are getting even more rich than many of you are, while we are building culture and communication around that plan of Utopia, communicating and having people participate and getting very excited about it, we also have to deliver the actual core of Utopia, which means to become happy. Happiness is very important. It has to do with people. It has to do with health. Of course, it opens up tremendous new opportunities also for the money, right? We can build all the infrastructures that are currently missing. And what does it mean? It means 3 things. I make happiness very simple. Of course, money is part of happiness, but we got money out of the way. Culture and entertainment is part of happiness. We got that out of the way. So what remains are the 3 most important personal components of happiness. Number 1, Brian Johnson is right. You can't die anymore. Death is bad. And there's a lot of controversy around it. I'm on the Brian Johnson train, but not in the sense that we have to spend $2 million per person per year and doing crazy stuff and being a little red lab like poor Brian in Venice Beach. I mean, Brian is great. He's pushing the frontier and the boundaries. That's great. But it's time. We have it's pretty clear how you don't die at this point. There are very lean pathways, and AGI will further help us with that. We can already do early detection, preventative care, all that stuff that no one has access to, but is completely solved, which creates a great business opportunity. In Pioneer Lands, in that Utopia, we cannot die, and we need to build the infrastructure for everyone to have automated preventative medicine, automated, perfect nutrition, automated perfect everything. You have all the tools, but there is no solution. So boom, that needs to be built now. And you see, I'm not putting a lot of burdens on you to do random stuff. No, these are trillions of dollars in business potential, but also personally, I don't want to die. So let's do it before we die, right? We need to find love. One of the big problems of our time, isolation, family formation, children, all that stuff is not happening anymore. It's a giant disaster. We need to solve that too. And I did some videos on that. So the reason I'm so excited about this is because solving these problems is not hard. We already did that. We know the blueprints, but we need to deliver now. We need to start forging that into a solution, and we have to communicate around it so people see we are up to something good that is very desirable for all humans. And then finally, we need to have friends. Isolation, epidemic everywhere. Internet, all kinds of stuff, social media, people are isolated. We need to bring it back so people can actually meet people and have good friends and perfect maximum quality human community. Also, not that hard to do, but who's working on that? What you see around these things of happiness is also, these are things you want to actually have. These are your top priorities in life once you're wealthy. That's what people can't buy right now. How dumb is it that people cannot buy immortality, they cannot buy love, and they cannot buy friends? That is a flaw in the capitalist system. So we need to make sure you can buy immortality, you can buy love, not the way you think, and you can buy friends, also not the way you think, but you can buy yourself a place in a society, in a civilization where these things are solved in intelligent ways because you can meet other people like yourself. So why is this important? It makes us enormous amounts of money if we solve these problems. They're easy to solve, in my opinion, at this point. There were just some organizational issues that now AGI can solve. But most importantly, they deliver the content for making us excited and making us exciting for everyone who's watching, which will be everyone because of condition number 2. Condition number 4, obviously, that is the elephant in the room. We have to learn to govern wisely. We have to make sure that we learn to do that, what these guys are doing there. I made them up in AI. So these guys are a little mix of Star Wars and, the Jedi Council and some grok fantasies. But all joking aside, what we need to figure out is how do we create a wise governance, governance, infrastructure that is voluntary, participatory, but does not allow every dummy to say something dumb. Think about global warming and Greta Thunberg. That's the worst case scenario. Some teeny running around with some mental meltdown, and then suddenly you shut down the nuclear power plants. So we have a lot of examples very recently, but also in the 20th century, of bad stuff happening in governance that tells us like, okay, we cannot fall prey to these things because then we are dead. In the age of ASI, one Greta Thunberg and humanity is dead. So we need to become resilient against all these viruses, the mind viruses, and we need to figure out how can we be grown-ups and smart. Wise governance systems, the most important thing ever. But a little more boring, more boring than getting rich. So we need to be wise about it and keep doing that. I have some good plans here. I will outline this in another video, what that wise governance system actually is. Very important to keep it inclusive. Everyone in the citizenry, whatever that means, can be, participate, but there's self-selection, there are certain rules, and there's a wisdom feed. We keep it all transparent, make it clear what it is. Everyone can chip in, but if you say stupid stuff that is proven by others to be stupid or not aligned, not wise, right? Ulterior motives, not logically constructed, you should not be participating in that specific debate. So it's a long story, but that is a solvable problem and we need to solve it. By the way, to solve wise governance doesn't mean we need a giant country for that. It means even in the beginning stages where we invest, for example, where we craft and invest these first great pillars of that new utopia that actually help us to live forever, to be wealthy, to be happy, to have families and all these things. While building that, we already need decision making. We already need to make sure everyone is on board. We already need to make sure everyone has a buy-in. So here we can train ourselves and fine-tune these new governance systems and check them if they work. Very important. If we cannot align ourselves, if we cannot govern ourselves, we cannot govern ASI. It's that simple. So we need to rapidly build and prove these things out so we can make sure when it hits us that we have governance systems that are robust, resilient, and highly effective. So we can actually control that little monster. Little is it's not little, it's giant. Breeding here, which is ASI. And then finally, condition number 5, not to be forgotten, is we have to stay mission focused while we are building utopia. We have to keep an eye on doom. We have to never forget the threat that is sitting there. We have to never forget that the thing that unlocks utopia for us now in the coming years is the thing that is guaranteed to wipe us all out if you're not very, very cautious about it. So we need to stay vigilant and never let down our guard on that thing. To continue to make ASI alignment number 1 priority, even though it's annoying, but we have to do it. And we have to understand we have these 2 parallel and interdependent goals. The goal to build and scale utopia and the goal to constrain and control ASI. That is the new paradigm for humanity, and it will stay the paradigm forever, in perpetuity, into eternity, until the day comes where we forget about number 2 and get extinct. I think the severity of that can be understood if you think about why are there no aliens? The Fermi paradox, the great filter and things like that. You can mathematically easily prove that there should be millions and millions of advanced civilizations in the universe, but there is none. We have never met one. There are some confused theories why there might just have escaped or something. I can tell you what the truth is. Of these millions of advanced civilizations, none has made it because they all invent ASI and they all go extinct. I want to be a downer. I think we can be the first ones. I'm a little delusional on that side, but I have faith in humanity. But we have to understand, I have high confidence we solve it in this generation. But we have to understand alignment is impossible. This is an exercise of continuous, eternal self-alignment of humanity. And all it takes is one generation of Greta Thunbergs and humanity is gone. So what we can do for now, it's our generation. We have to make sure we are not tapping into that trap in 2028 and 2029. We have to make sure we unlock utopia and make everyone very, very happy. Then it will be up to other people, other generations, even if we live for a very long time, other generations, to never, never stumble. Because ASI will be sitting there and waiting. And at the millisecond we let our guard down and allow that thing to go into a runaway situation, it is the end. So in a way, it's a very poetic setup for humanity, that we achieve this godlike status of utopia, but at the same time build the monster that will forever be with us. And at the millisecond we let the guard down, it's lights out for everyone. Interesting challenge. I'm sure we will handle it. But for now, our job is to make sure this lights out scenario does not happen with us right now. I think we are on a good track. Maybe many people will think we are completely delusional on that, but it's not about being delusional. It's about who has a better plan and who has a better theory. And I tell you the answer is no one. So I hope that was helpful. If you know anyone who wants to have discussions around that, please connect me on X and YouTube. I'm reaching out to a bunch of people. Max Tegmark, I'm sure I'm getting them on the show at some point, and some other people. And we will have more discussions around that. Let's build a little bit momentum here and awareness. But let's not forget, not just media and awareness. We need to build utopia. We are on a good track. We're focusing on getting rich. Then we are focusing on building out the media, the pioneer media. Then we have to become happy, which is a tricky thing, but we're doing our best. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know what you think, and see you very soon.